And it is This Is Whole Life, the early edition. So we're trying something new here. And as always, to my left, cross table, Dr. Melanie Bachman.
Hello.
It's not, hold on, let me turn this way. Ken is still at my right hand, as always, as he's supposed to be. And to my left is Lucas. And we've decided to give this a try. We're going to try to start recording earlier on Tuesday morning. So for those of you who usually send things and it's like, ooh, I've got until about noon. Not anymore. Well, at least not for now, because we're going to give this a whirl and see if we can get this done early in the morning when, well, has anyone had breakfast? Who ate breakfast? Come on, be honest.
Not today.
No. Okay.
No one.
So normally we haven't eaten lunch, which drives, I believe, a lot of the food conversations. And today we haven't had breakfast. I'm not sure how much we're going to change here. So other than the fact that we'll be done earlier in the day. So motivation, high, middle, low? Where are we at?
I'd say I'm mid right now. Mid.
I rest a lot in the weekend, so.
So you're saying high.
Yeah.
All right. Melanie?
Nice. I medium high.
Medium.
I'll go for that one.
Wow.
You hear my voice. I'm here. So that's where I'm at.
I'm not seeing coffee, so everybody must be doing pretty good. I mean, I don't do coffee ever, but
yeah. Well, there's a few drinks that
I had to pull out the Red Bull this
there you
morning
go.
because Randy didn't make coffee. So
we cut it too tight. It could have been close, but we didn't quite have time. So I want to start off. This week we talked about we get to work, and it was about motivation. And this is going to be top 3 email for sure, I think, so far this year. Hey, Randy, interesting message on Sabbath. Not too sure if I'm motivated to comment. Hope everyone's having a great week. Keep you all in my prayers, Carolina.
Wow, Dave.
I like that. Is awesome.
Take some of those pointers.
Not too sure if I'm motivated to comment. That's and maybe it's early. It tickled me more than usual, but I just had to check one more time to make sure we had everybody and their comments in. It's also something really cool about this past weekend. Tito, our online worship host, had let us know that we had someone watching from Uganda, Africa.
Very cool.
During first service. And I was like, that's pretty cool. There's always fun when people check in and actually tell you where they're watching from. So
Wonder how they found us.
I don't know. Maybe through the podcast. If you found us, Uganda, Africa viewers, let us know. Podcast at wholelife.church. That'd be interesting. We do have listeners there, so maybe. I don't know. Quietly quitting, loudly quitting. And maybe the best part was when he said, let's go to the Bible and see if we can find some applications here. And it was like the Jonah, work that you find revolting. And my favorite was the Moses, the Noah. No results. You work for 120 years, and the only people you get on the boat was your family.
Kind of, they had to come with you whether they wanted to or not, right?
Yeah, they were. I think they were.
We're going on this road trip.
And don't you make me turn around.
Get in the back.
bring that deck of Uno cards.
Did they get to do? Maybe they played the same game you guys did with the Uno cards in the back seat. Are we turning left or right?
Yeah, I think the flood took them where it was going to take.
And maybe John the Baptist, bad pay and benefits, terrible workplace conditions. I was like, to put a funny spin on each of the things, though, but as you were reading them, I was listening to them on the way to work again this morning, and each one of them was like, oh, yeah, that was that job. Uh-huh. Yep. That was that job. I mean, there was a little bit of that there. And then I was like, can I listen to the list? This was like the 3rd or 4th time I've listened to the list. Could I find something in the list that I could apply to whole life?
Okay, see, I was about to say, I'm a little worried at how enthusiastic about this sermon you've been.
No. And it was...
It's exactly what I needed right now at 8 a.m.
I think the closest I came was, sometimes we all feel like the Peter, where you're a constant disaster at work. Nothing seems to work right. And Lucas and I won't speak on Lucas's behalf here, but last week, or maybe it was the week before, there was one day where just like Oh yeah, there's like 4 things. Got to get them in here. Set them up, knock them down, and it was just like nothing. There was roadblocks at every turn. Nothing worked well, and I was like, so maybe I feel a little bit of the Peter. But when you start to think about the numbers, almost half of the U.S. workforce is quietly quitting.
Yeah. Over half.
that's
Over
amazing.
half have quit in one way or another. That's
scary.
You just think about what that means in terms of productivity and the ability to get things done, and you see it though, right? I mean, it's not like I don't know. I guess when I think about quietly quitting or loudly quitting, I kind of tend to think about like somebody in an accounting job or something like that. But you see it in all the customer service. I mean, you see it all the time, right? I mean, you go to a hotel, a restaurant, or somewhere like that, and the person you just know that they don't want to be there. They're not interested in helping you. It's like one of my favorite moments was going to a certain pizza chain a number of years ago, and we got in there. It's a long, sad story, but anyway, basically we the waitress came by and said, "What do you want?" We said, "Well, you have a buffet." "Yep, go for it." So we go up to the buffet. There's like 1 slice of vegetarian pizza and 1 slice of cheese. So we grab that. And we're like, "So more vegetarian stuff?" Oh no, the buffet ended. Just the buffet just ended. So what's out there is, well, you didn't mention that when we were. Well, I mean, it's out there, right? And I'm like, okay. So we're going to need to order a pizza then. Okay. We waited for an hour. It came out. I'm telling you, they put it in the freezer.
Oh no!
They cooked it and put it in the freezer, and then they put it on my table. So as we're checking out, the manager's checking us out. She said, "So how was everything?" I said, "It wasn't good." And she said, "Yeah."
Oh man!
And it was at that point I think everybody had loudly quit that job. It was like, but you see this, you see it a lot. You see people who are very unenthusiastic, but then you also see the people that are like really, like, totally into their job, and sometimes it's the jobs that you wouldn't expect. I was I just name another pizza chain. I had to get pizza for a meeting that we were having last week, and Hungry Howie's. I was over in Altamont Springs. I wish I could remember the guy's name. He was on fire. The guy was like really friendly. Everybody's walking, "Hey man, got your stuff. Does it look like the way you want it to?" Is that just very on point and motivated, and you love seeing that when you see people who are really really passionate about their job. And I like to think that we see that out of the team that we have here at Whole Life.
I think so. Yeah. And probably the best, when you get to know somebody too, those are if you like the person you're talking about, Hungry Howie's, wish you remember the name. One of the managers at Waffle House in Apopka's name was Seth. And the problem, well, it's always good if you know the manager's name, because that means the manager's coming out, they're checking on things, they're trying to create a relationship. And they were giving us discounts because after all of our production meetings, when I was at Forest Lake, we would take the group out, and it was Waffle House for the group. And so it was our post-debrief meetings. We do it at Waffle House. And then all of a sudden, like, the ceiling tiles, like, everyone's been to Waffle House. I mean, it's not fine dining, but it's Southern dining, right?
I've driven past them.
No.
Hey, they don't have gluten-free waffles. That's so.
You can get the omelet. You can have it capped. You can have it.
I can't do the omelet. I can't do eggs, so I pretty much have no reason to stop.
Oh man,
you can't do eggs?
Nope.
Oh, man, I'm so sorry.
No wonder that Melanie's the height she is. She couldn't eat anything in her younger years, and it's just like, I think we should be impressed she's as tall as she is.
Oh my goodness, man. So anyway, we got to know Seth, and he would always, "Well, you guys look like you're still hungry. Can I bring you guys out another waffle?" That kind of thing, because he knew we were coming. Every month we'd bring a whole group of people, and all of a sudden he was gone. But when he was there, like, you could smell clean in the restaurant. Like, first thing I do when I go to a restaurant that I haven't been to, is I look up and I look at the AC vents and I look at the lights. And if there's spider webs and dirt in the AC, I'm just like, ooh, I'm moving over 2 tables, 3 tables.
That's a pretty good indication of what the kitchen looks like too, though.
Well,
so.
that's what I'm saying. And so so every part about that, like they were packed. And then all of a sudden Seth was gone. And we're like, he must be off. And then it's 2 weeks and then it's 3 weeks. It's the 4th time afterwards. And it's like, yeah, they moved me over to Leesburg. And he's like, it's a heck of a drive. I really would rather be here. But he's like, the restaurant's really struggling over there. So they'd given him 2 restaurants. And then exactly what you're talking about when you were talking about, employers can just crush their A players. Yeah. And after that, I saw him one more time at the Apopka location as a diner. He was no longer working there. He's like, yeah, it was too much. I couldn't handle 2. And I forget where he was working, but it was the oddest. It was the oddest. Like you went from Waffle House to something else. And it wasn't in the food service industry, but I can't remember what it was. But so all of these stories about employers and employees, I felt like there was a little something in here for everybody. As you were going through all different parts of it, heads were shaking, some people were falling asleep, but you're not listening, so you're not going to hear this. And it's okay. We understand.
Somebody close to you, huh?
Someone close.
Okay.
And then also, if you were all looking at what's sitting in front of me, there are 3 sheets of comments that we got from the message, from people talking about, like last week it was, what was your worst job, started getting run through the chat. And one of my favorites, of course, Nate said, I wonder when it comes to the Peter, if being a disaster at work can be a good thing. I know I can be a fun disaster at work, or could we call it chaos? Could they intertwine?
I'm sure they could.
Nate is one of my favorite disasters. So anytime that that's happening, I'm motivated along with him. Randy asked, interesting stats. How much of the issue is based in simply how employers treat their employees? Or does it come down deeper to, it always takes 2 to tango, right? But how much of it is just like, I've worked at a couple places where the culture didn't seem to fit anyone, whether you were on any side. It seemed dysfunctional, but most people made a lot of money. So I felt like it kind of got excused. It's like, well, I make really good money, so I guess I'm going to deal with it. But there were only just a handful out of like 40 that I think would have said, if you'd asked them, so how do you like your job? Right? Like nobody was happy. It was what Ken, you described about, people constantly complaining, people posting things on social media about their boss, about their coworkers. And, and then when you were talking about how people were like, how do I get out of this job? I have to replace my income. I might have benefits. I might have a family that, require those benefits. I mean, there's so many different pieces and parts to this. And that was the one I resonated with. That was 12 years, 10 of which I just loathed at the same company in two different stretches. And it seemed like no matter what I did to try to get out, I had solid job offers. Yeah, just send me your resume. I'm going to put it in the queue. We're hiring you for this. And I was like, ghost. Or, and so I feel like when people are trying to weather this part, it's maybe the hardest piece for anyone, because you're just like, come on, God, this is, I'm one of these people that are just trying to do the right thing. I'm trying to work with integrity. I'm trying to do all these things. And here I am just stuck. And it took me a long time to figure out that God had some lessons for me to learn that I did not see that I needed to learn. And that's why I was stuck there for that long. So it was like, no matter what. And finally it was just like, okay, what do we have to do to get out of here? Like, what do I have to do to get out of here? And it was one of the hardest things ever to have to live through, was just every day going to work going, here it is. It's the same thing. Nothing has changed. Nothing's going to change. And here I am. What do we tell people that are in that situation where you really are asking them, like last week, go to work go to work for Jesus. And that's really, really, I love Jesus, but that's really hard.
It is hard. I've been there, done that. And, I'm not really trying to be flippant when I say that, the things I'm saying. I'm not trying to act like that's easy. And I definitely, when I put the first thing you can do is find a new job, for particularly, I think for people at this, work stage that I'm at this point where I'm, you're a little over midway through your career. It's a difficult thing to shift careers. It's hard to find, when you're early. I worked in public relations. I moved over to broadcast news. I moved back to communications. I moved to, early in your career, there you have a little bit more flexibility to shift more quickly. But particularly as you go in your career, it can be really difficult, and things can change. You can be, I like working for the boss that I have right now, but I'm also very conscious that I work, in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The administration, the conference can change it can change anytime, but for sure every 5 years there's a constituency session and somebody else can come in, and not all leadership is created equal. And so I remember being at one particular job within the Seventh-day Adventist system and talking to an old grizzled veteran who was, I was like, well, man, this particular administrator is pretty difficult. And he said, well, pharaohs come, pharaohs go. He said, I'm grateful for the good ones. The bad ones, I just put my head down, do my job, and try to survive. And there's a piece of that you have to take. But to your point, well, to the question that was asked, yes, I think that it's a combination. I think that there are times where employers make it incredibly difficult for their employees to be motivated. They create situations that are, take superhuman spiritual discipline to come in and give your all because of the way you're being treated. I also think that there are times where even in the best work conditions, you have people that just aren't motivated, sometimes for really legitimate reasons, sometimes for illegitimate reasons. Legitimate reason, the Hezekiah that I talked about, when you're dealing with a family member that's really sick, or you have a loved one that's passed away, or you're dealing with sickness, chronic pain, it doesn't matter how great your employer is, it can be really hard to be motivated to go in and work when you're suffering
absolutely.
and when you're in pain. And it's not your fault. It's not that you don't want to be. You're struggling to survive.
Sure.
And so that can be really difficult. So there's lots of reasons where it isn't a unmotivated worker, or it isn't somebody who doesn't want to be, but it's just a struggle. And so I think the problem becomes when it's not health related, you lack motivation every job you go to. If you have one bad employer, you've had a bad employer. If every single one of your employers is bad, you're a bad employee.
Probably you.
There's just something to that. And I'm not trying to be rude, but if every single employer is, in your opinion, a disaster, you probably need to start looking internally at what's really going on there.
T. Cinco said, the service began with the story of a woman who broke the rules of her company. That was a great video, by the way.
Wasn't it? Thanks to Darlene Jimenez, who didn't want to be publicly recognized for giving me that story. But
no, that was
we'll just do it on the podcast.
Yeah, this is sort of public.
She sent me an email with the story in it, and I thought, man, that's really good.
Yeah, but she broke the rules for good reason. How much does a conscience play in how we understand our role as an employee and what we believe to be the true reason for being there at the job, even though it may be opposed to some rules of the organization? Tammy.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah. I think there's got to be room, in this kind of played out in the chat, where everyone felt like there's got to be a little bit of room for everyone to be the person they are, and their personality plays, and then that may require a little reining in here or there. But
I think the question to think about was what Jane was doing hurting her employer? Well, one could argue that letting people ride the bus for free takes away money from the company. But I would also argue that what she did brought a lot of positive attention to her employer and was actually had a very large positive. And here's what I think. When it comes to breaking the rules of the organization that you work for, if you break the rules, you just need to be prepared to take the consequences. And to me, that's the bottom line. If you break the rules, even for the right reasons, and your employer doesn't like it, you need to be ready to go ahead and accept the consequences and not say, well, I was doing it for all the right reasons. Well, you were doing it for all the right reasons, but if they don't like it, it was a rule. You knew it. You broke it for the right reasons. And now you need to go ahead and
just know that's your swan song.
Take it for what it is. And I think you have to be prepared for that a little bit when it comes to that. I think it concerns me when people break the rules of their organization and then complain when the organization's not happy about it. I mean, I get it. It's frustrating when you're doing a good, like, let's go ahead and say Jane had gotten fired for what she did. Super frustrating. I would argue it's terrible management. But if she's breaking the rules, and that's the consequences have been stated ahead of time, you do that at your own peril of employment.
And then we pick at the bus company.
And then then you
make
do
them
that.
change the rules.
Yeah. I mean, but it's I just think that's one of the things that a lot of times people will be frustrated with an employer, and you know what their rules are. You know, when I worked for the Disney store, I knew that they had a set of rules about what it meant to come ready to go on stage. You had to have your clothes pressed. They couldn't be wrinkly. You couldn't have any visible tattoos. You couldn't wear women couldn't wear hoop earrings. They had to wear stud earrings. I don't know if that's still the same, but back when I was working at the Disney store in the late 90s, that was part of their dress code. Well, I mean, they told me that when I was before I got hired and during orientation. So if you choose to break the rules, I mean, it's really one of the things that you have to, I really encourage my own kids as they start getting into their professional career to really think carefully about who they work for. Think about it. Can you be supportive of their mission? Can you live with the rules that they have? Are you, and there is a part of it, I use the word live with it, because there are early in your career times where you're just going to have to work for somebody who maybe you don't have 100% alignment with.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe you don't like all the rules, but can you live with it and do a good job for them? And I think that's important. I think it's super important to be able to look at those things and make those decisions and then be fair to an employer. I think what can be frustrating is when the employer doesn't tell you up front, when they say their mission is one thing and you discover it's really another. I think that really is on an employer when they switch up the rules, when they change things. That's not good employment. That's not, in my opinion, ethical. And be transparent. But a lot of us, organizations aren't that different from people. A lot of us have our perception of who we are, and then everybody else around us knows who we are.
Sure.
And we think, I am this, this, and this. And other people are like, I know you think you are. And there's a lot of organizations that think their mission is one thing, but their actions tell you it's something different.
I used to have to attend new employee orientation for a company that the company I worked for had a contract with, and their dress code was similar to what you just described of Disney when you were there. And the person that was running the orientation, after they would come back from this little break, and during the break, he'd be like, "So did you notice anything about that presentation, Ken?" And it's like, "Well, I don't know why." "Well, you have, sleeve, a tattoo on this arm. I'm going to have you go home and cover it up." I'm like, "Really?" "Yeah, like right now?" Yeah, you can go home now. And people were so frustrated about that part of it, and then they'd come back and afterwards, but there was never a question afterwards about who or what, like the dress code or whatever it could, because this person was just so kindly, though, in your face about whatever the infraction was that you had done. And people that I worked with are like, would you work for him? Like, doesn't this seem weird? And I'm like, I don't know, I kind of like it. I'd rather know up front what I'm up against than later on find out and then make it an embarrassing. Cause they were very kind about it and just like, hey, but these are the rules. We want you to start right away, get off on the right foot. And I thought it was kind of cool that they did it that way. But
you know what? I loved working for the Disney store. They were probably they're probably my favorite high school, college job I ever had. And they had the most rules, the most strict ideas about things. I mean, I remember one particular day, a young lady came in who had just had her boyfriend and she had broken up. And she was, she wasn't weeping, but you could just tell. I mean, it was not a good day, obviously. And I remember our manager kindly taking her aside and saying, go home. And she was like, well, but I'm scheduled. And the manager said, well, it's the happiest place on earth and you're not happy. And the girl said, well, how can you expect me to be happy? She said, I don't. That's why I'm not upset. Go home.
Yeah.
And, let me know when you're ready to come on. And, this was something they talked to us during orientation. I remember them specifically saying, if you are having a bad day, call us up and tell us. Just if you're not going to be able to put it on, because this is important. And they were very clear about their expectations. We knew what they wanted. And to me, that's where it's at. As an employer, you can have really high expectations as long as you're clear about it and consistent.
It's my birthday next week. I think I don't feel like I'm going to have a good day.
Well, Randy, we don't care about being the happiest person.
Matthew said, sometimes I feel unmotivated to work for a company who does not follow their rules.
See, there we go. There it is.
That's it. In specific, doing favors for people, which basically breaks company policy, but then your leader or whoever reports you and forces you to commit those acts which can degrade one's reputation or morality. How does a Christian combat this, especially when it's a job that pays enough to make a living? Like, hey, I like my job, it pays well, all those things that you talked about. And it's like, but I also, man, if you don't follow your own rules, then it's hard to take, like, go home. But go home in your case was a good one. Like, hey, this is part of the deal. But go home, or maybe you don't fit in because you're not following the rules. That's hard to take criticism when you don't see that being mimicked from the top.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, one of those things where you have to make some decisions. You can confront your supervisor about the problem that has consequences potentially, particularly if your supervisor doesn't take input particularly well. I think that sometimes a respectful, hey, can you help me understand? Or, hey, I'm seeing this. Am I seeing something? Is there something I'm not seeing? Those kind of conversations, when done right and respectfully, can sometimes be positive. Sometimes they're not. And sometimes you're in a position where you are going to have to figure out just how to find your own internal motivation, because the employer that you're working for is not going to be fair. They're not going to do things the right way. And you've got to go ahead and deal with it until you can move somewhere else or move somewhere else. You just have to figure out how to find your own internal motivation. And it's always amazing to me that I run into some people that work in industries and for people that I know are very difficult, and yet they still find that motivation to be a great employee in spite of not being recognized, in spite of not working with people who are ethical or fair, but they find a way to say, hey, I'm going to be who I know I was created to be. I'm going to be my best, and I'm not going to use somebody else not being their best as an excuse to not give my best.
Amy asked, could it be possible that a change in how we feel with a job is a sign from God? I had a job I liked and enjoyed. Unfortunately, there was a situation that made me have to fight to keep my job with the company. I was given another chance, but moved to a different area. And in that area, I started noticing that I was no longer enjoying the job and company. I feel like had that change not happened, I would have stayed longer with the company. And if I did, I could have missed the opportunity to meet my husband. So could it be, well, Amy, I think it can be. I mean, I didn't know why I was at that crazy job for 10 years that I absolutely loathed. But some of the lessons that I learned, and you met your husband. So I think there's opportunities for God to do whatever he wants in your job. And he can certainly make it difficult to find a new one.
Yeah.
Until that is. So I think that's, in asking responded, I thought, I don't doubt signs from God, but I wonder if we need to be cautious about interpreting everything as a sign. Doesn't that lay the blame for our decisions on God? So I thought that was an interesting thought about, because I resonated asking about that same thing. Like, well, I wasn't quietly quitting. I was still doing a good job. I was still hoping that there would be some kind of advancement or movement within the position I was in, and trying, but also like, I really don't care for this job that much. I would rather be doing something else. So I kind of took it as a sign from God, but kind of not a fun sign from God. Like, no, you need to still be here, because obviously there was things that seemed so sure that never ever came true. So I don't know. I think it could be a sign from God, but I also think that sometimes it could just be us not seeing blind spots of things that maybe we're not doing very well either, that could put us in those situations. The other one we were just talking about, SM asked, what would you say about our work as also our mission field? I don't know if that's not really what this was motivation, but what if our work is our mission field and that is our motivation? Is that a good combo, or is that just an opportunity to, if you fail? I mean, I feel like if that's the case and maybe it doesn't go as well as you hoped.
No, I think you can absolutely look at your work as your mission field. And it depends on the job. It depends on the time. And in fact, for a lot of us, we see our work as part of our witness of our belief in Christ, and some of that isn't like necessarily blatant preaching, but just having a good work ethic, being honest. Those things can go a long way. So absolutely you can view it as your mission field. There's also some times I think that I've had a job where I did not view it as my mission field. There was another aspect of my life where my mission, where I was finding meaning and purpose of my life while I was doing that. So I think it can go both ways. I think when you can tie your job into your life purpose, it's a lot easier to be motivated.
They finished that comment by saying, I love working for Jesus. He's the greatest motivator. And Tito said, one of the greatest motivations for me, besides my family, as I walk into work asking, what are you going to do today, Lord? I can't wait to see your handiwork. And I was like, well, there you go. Tito's got the right idea, although he also said that I absolutely love my job. So that's also a little bit easier I did not have that for 10 years. Hey, Lord, what are you going to do today? Because this is awesome. Look at my job. So that's also, even though it was more than a daily, like multiple times per day. Like, you got to get me out of this job.
I think when you're miserable in your job, it's probably a really great time to start saying, hey, God, what can you do in my day to give me purpose and meaning?
It was the prayer. I didn't feel
Never quite got there, huh?
Well, I mean, every job, even if it stinks, has its good days and bad days. I mean, every job, even that was another theme throughout that, like, well, I really like my job, but I'm not saying that I love my job every single day, because I think we touched on that last week a little bit. Like, yeah, not everything about every single job is not going to be perfect. So, and then as we start to wrap it up, No Name asked, can we look at relationships the same way we look at how we are treated at a job? I want to hear Pastor Ken's opinion on it.
Can we look at relationships the same way we look at how we're treated at a job? Mm-hmm. So finding motivation in those relationships, is that
that's what I took from it.
So yes, you're welcome to do that.
I want to hear Pastor Ken's opinion on it. No name, unless you were secretly no name, Ken.
No.
Because we have not
Please tell me my opinion, Ken.
Not officially Melanie that shows up from time to time. So
Totally anonymous, Melanie.
that's the one.
I think the series is Get to Work, and there's a lot of different kinds of work. So there's the work that you get paid for, that you go to work for, and then there's also the chores around the house. Relationships involve work, and again, if you're viewing work as a bad word, then that sounds bad. But if work is just something you're having to put effort into, if it's something you're trying to bring order out of chaos or maintain order in, well then yeah, absolutely, you can look at it as a relationship is in the same way, and you can also look at those different things that we talked about. Your relationships where you don't see anything happening, or it can be very difficult to be in a relationship when you're going, like, if work is really rough. I mean, the 10 years, it can impact the relationships that you have at home, because you're frustrated at work and you come home and you still feel frustrated when you get home, and so that can impact the relationships with the people that you're friends with, or living with, or whatever. And so absolutely, I think you can look at it, and then I think you could take the principles that we talked about for finding motivation, changing expectations.
Yeah,
I know that was that's for a lot of people, it's a major wake up moment when they kind of realize, I cannot change the people in my life. I can only change me. And so I need to change my goals from how do I get this person to fit what I need to how can I change myself?
Sure, yeah.
How can I change myself? What do I need to do? And so, yeah, I think you could use all those principles in relationships as well.
Well, if you missed the message, you really should go back and listen to it, because the other part that I appreciated was I feel like not all pastors have your background, where also being an employer, also managing people, managing teams, where a lot of the insight that Ken shared, might seem like, well, yeah, I've heard that. I kind of know that. But with the perspective of having that one, and then also like, hey, it's not only me as a person and as an employee, it's also us as employers. I thought it was a really good mix, and I felt like everything just kind of lined up really, really solid. So if you're in a spot where you're thinking to yourself, man, maybe I need to make a change, or I'm just not happy where I'm at, there was a lot of good advice put into you were about 25 minutes, I think, and it was one of my favorite. Like I said, I've listened to this message 3 times because I kept finding new little bits and pieces as I went through it. So I really appreciated this one in a work series of all places. Work. I think we're going to do more work this week. What are we working on this week?
We're working on leadership.
That's right.
And followership.
Oh, Lucas, what was our word? We came up with a word on Saturday morning. Leader-wer. Which one are you? Leader-wer. Huh. Which one are you? Are you a leader-wer? Are you a leader-wer?
Or are you
Lucas, would you please say what I mean, please?
Are you a leader or a follower?
Or are you a leader-wer? Can you be both?
I think everybody is.
Oh, ooh. Sneak peek into next week.
Yes.
How about that?
Easter eggs.
Well, this is, again, I when I was like, man, we're going to talk about work, after talking about play, I'm like, man, it's going to be a downer. But actually, this has been super interesting. And so I think, and again, with all the feedback that we got from both services, and just people feedback were like, man, that was a great message this week. So I think, like y'all, I'm enjoying it, and you're enjoying it. And I'm a little sad I'm not going to be here this week, but I do have to take a moment just in case my mom is listening. On this coming Friday, this is Tuesday, the 20th, on the 23rd of August, my parents will have been married 60 years.
Wow, congratulations to them.
So, happy anniversary.
I will sadly not be here for this week's. I caught a quick flight out on Friday afternoon. I'll be back on Sunday to join a fish fry in Wisconsin. In the summertime. That's what we're doing to celebrate. Right. So that's what we do. And it's not at a supper club, but it's close. And so if y'all don't know what a supper club is, Ken said, look it up.
Google.
It's right. Google. You don't know what Moses is? Look it up. That made me laugh hard. All right. So this week we're going to be looking at leaders. So definitely don't miss that. And so the other part, just as a reminder, if we're going to start doing this early, that means you have to have your questions in by, I will check Tuesday morning before 8. I was checking as I walked in this morning and caught Carolina Dave's email. But if you have podcast at wholelife.church or 407-965-1607, but man, if you wait till Tuesday morning, you might miss it because it is now 8:46, and so we're about 45 minutes. We're done, and you will have missed it because I don't usually check while we're taping, but I could look one more time. Nope, that's it.
All right.
Well, thanks guys for listening, and have a great week.